The coffee mug slipped from my fingers when I heard Ria's voice through the kitchen door. Not because of what she was saying, though that was bad enough, but because of how she was saying it. Like she was discussing weekend plans instead of destroying our 12-year marriage. I'm leaving him, Hayes. Tonight. He's not what I need anymore. You understand responsibility. Real responsibility. I stood there in my own kitchen, holding a dish towel like some kind of shield, listening to my wife plan her escape with a man old enough to be her grandfather. Through the crack in the door, I could see her pacing by the living room window, her phone pressed to her ear, that designer handbag I'd bought her for Christmas dangling from her shoulder. The kids will be fine. They're adaptable. And honestly, Kai spends more time at that grimy boxing gym than he does with them anyway. That stung. Sure, I went to Fitz's gym 4 nights a week, but only after I'd helped with homework, made dinner, and tucked them into bed. Ria knew that. She'd been there for exactly none of those bedtime stories in the past 6 months. Your penthouse has that extra bedroom, right? Perfect. I can set up an office there, maybe work remotely more often. My hands started shaking. Not from fear, from rage so pure, it felt like electricity running through my veins. Ria was talking about moving in with Hayes Relin, the 87-year-old hedge fund king whose face graced the business section of the Boston Globe at least twice a month. The guy needed a walking stick to get around, but apparently he had other qualities that appealed to my wife. No, I won't take anything that would complicate things legally. Just my clothes and personal items. I want this to be clean. Clean. Right. Because abandoning your husband and 2 kids for a sugar daddy was the epitome of cleanliness. I backed away from the door as quietly as I could, my mind already racing. 12 years of marriage, and she thought she could just walk away clean. Leave me with the mortgage, the kids, the mess she'd created with her spending habits and her sudden need for responsibility. The front door slammed 20 minutes later. I heard her car start, then fade into the distance. When I finally worked up the courage to check, her closet was half empty, and there was a note on the kitchen counter written in her precise handwriting. Kai, I need space to figure things out. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. The kids can stay with you for now. For now. Like they were houseplants she might want back when convenient. I crumpled the note and threw it in the trash, then immediately retrieved it. Evidence. Everything was evidence now. Tommy, our 8-year-old, wandered into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes. Dad? Where's Mom? Her car's not in the driveway. She had to go help a friend, I said, hating myself for the lie. She'll be back soon. But I knew she wouldn't be. And as I made Tommy's breakfast and got him ready for school, as I explained to 11-year-old Lisa that Mom was working late again, I started planning. Ria wanted clean? I'd give her clean. So clean it would make her head spin. The first thing I did after dropping the kids at school was drive to our bank. Ria might think she was clever, but she'd made one crucial mistake. All our accounts were joint, and I knew every password she'd ever used. Her mother's maiden name, our anniversary, the kids' birthdays. Ria wasn't creative when it came to security. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I sat in my truck in the bank parking lot with my laptop, using the public Wi-Fi, and started moving money. Not stealing. Everything I touched was legally mine. Joint accounts, joint investments, joint credit cards. I transferred every penny from our checking and savings into a new account in my name only. Then I moved our retirement funds, our emergency savings, even the college funds for the kids. By lunchtime, Ria had access to exactly $0 of our shared money. The credit cards were next. I called each company, explained that my wife had left, and I needed to freeze the accounts for security reasons. They were surprisingly accommodating. Apparently, abandoned husbands were more common than I'd thought. I was just finishing up when my phone buzzed with a text from Ria. "Having dinner with Hayes tonight, don't wait up." I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. Let her have her fancy dinner. She'd be paying for it with whatever cash she had in her purse, because her credit cards were about to become very expensive decorations. The kids were quiet at dinner. Lisa kept glancing at Ria's empty chair, and Tommy asked twice when Mom was coming home. I deflected as best I could, but I could see the confusion in their eyes. They knew something was wrong. After they went to bed, I sat in my home office. The room Ria had always complained was too small, too cluttered with my computer junk, and opened my laptop. Time for Phase 2. Ria's social media accounts were a goldmine of stupidity. She'd been posting photos for weeks that I'd somehow missed or ignored. Pictures of expensive jewelry I hadn't bought her. Shots of restaurant meals that cost more than our weekly grocery budget. And tonight, the crown jewel, a photo of her and Hayes at some upscale seafood place, her hand resting on his arm, both of them smiling like they'd won the lottery. The caption read, "Finally found someone who appreciates the finer things in life." I screenshotted everything. Then I started digging deeper. Ria worked at Meridian Financial, a mid-sized investment firm where she'd been climbing the corporate ladder for the past 5 years. She made decent money. Not as much as she liked to pretend, but decent. What she didn't make was enough to afford the lifestyle she'd been living lately. I pulled up our joint credit card statements and started cross-referencing them with her social media posts. The expensive dinners, the jewelry, the designer clothes, none of it was showing up on our cards, which meant someone else was paying for it. Hayes Relin, presumably. The man with the walking stick and the penthouse and the 87 years of experience manipulating people. My phone rang at 11:47 p.m. Ria's name flashed on the screen. "Hello, Ria." "Kai, thank God. Listen, I'm having some trouble with my credit card. It got declined at dinner, which is so embarrassing. Can you call the company tomorrow and sort it out?" "Which card?" "The Visa. And actually, I tried the MasterCard too, and it didn't work either. Maybe there's some kind of system error?" I let the silence stretch out, savoring the moment. "There's no error, Ria." "What do you mean?" "I mean I canceled all our joint credit cards today, along with moving all our joint money into accounts you can't access." The silence on her end was beautiful. "You can't do that," she finally said, her voice rising. "That money is mine too." "Was yours. Past tense. You left, remember? You wanted clean? This is clean." "Kai, this is ridiculous. I just need some space to think. I'm not divorcing you." "Funny, because Hayes seemed to think you were moving in with him, permanently." Another silence. Longer this time. "You were listening to my phone calls?" "In my own kitchen, yes, while I was making coffee in the house you abandoned." "I didn't abandon anyone. I'm figuring things out." At his penthouse, with his money, while posting photos about finding someone who appreciates the finer things. I was standing now, pacing around my office. "Tell me, Ria, how long has this been going on?" "It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. The question is how long you've been lying to me about it." I could hear her breathing, could picture her standing in some expensive hotel lobby or maybe Hayes's fancy apartment, trying to figure out how to spin this. "Look, we can talk about this tomorrow, like adults. But I need access to our accounts tonight. I don't have any cash and not my problem." "Kai, please, don't be petty." Petty. She was calling me petty for protecting our assets after she abandoned our family for a man old enough to collect Social Security. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, my voice steady despite the anger coursing through me. "You're going to come home tomorrow and explain to the kids why Mommy decided they weren't important enough to stick around for. Then you're going to pack the rest of your stuff and move in with your boyfriend permanently. And then we're going to have a very interesting conversation about divorce terms. You're being unreasonable. I'm being practical. You made your choice. Now you get to live with it." I hung up before she could respond. My phone immediately started ringing again. I turned it off and went to bed, but I didn't sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle around me, thinking about 12 years of marriage and 2 kids who didn't deserve this mess, and a wife who thought she could trade up like she was swapping cars. By morning, I had a plan. Rhea showed up at 7:30 a.m., just as I was getting the kids ready for school. She looked like she hadn't slept much, which gave me a petty satisfaction I wasn't proud of. Her designer clothes from the night before were wrinkled, and her makeup was smudged around the edges. "Mommy!" Tommy launched himself at her, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of genuine emotion cross her face. Maybe she did feel something about what she was doing to them. "Hi, baby," she said, hugging him tight. "I missed you." Lisa was more reserved, hanging back by the kitchen counter with her cereal bowl. At 11, she was old enough to sense the tension in the room, old enough to know that something fundamental had shifted in our family. "Where were you last night?" Lisa asked. Rhea glanced at me, then back at our daughter. "I was staying with a friend. Sometimes grown-ups need to take breaks from each other." "Are you getting divorced?" Lisa's question was direct, matter-of-fact. She'd inherited Rhea's bluntness, apparently. "We're just figuring some things out, sweetheart. Nothing for you to worry about." I bit my tongue. Nothing to worry about except their mother had moved in with another man and was planning to make it permanent. After I dropped the kids at school, I came home to find Rhea in our bedroom, packing another suitcase. "We need to talk," she said without looking up. "I'm listening." "This thing with the accounts, with the credit cards, it's childish, Kai. I get that you're hurt, but you can't just cut me off financially. Watch me." She straightened up, fixing me with that look she used in business meetings when someone wasn't cooperating. "I could fight you on this. Legally, joint assets are joint assets." "Go ahead. I'd love to explain to a judge why you need immediate access to our money so you can continue your affair with Hayes Rellan." Her face went pale. "It's not an affair." "What would you call it?" "It's complicated." I almost laughed. "Complicated. Right. Is that what you told him when you moved into his penthouse last night? How do you—" "Social media, Rhea. You posted a photo from his balcony at midnight. Great view of the harbor, by the way." She'd been sloppy, probably high on the excitement of her new life. The photo showed her holding a glass of champagne, the city lights twinkling behind her through floor-to-ceiling windows. I'd reverse-searched the image and found 3 real estate articles featuring Hayes's penthouse. Same view, same windows, same marble balcony railing. "You're stalking me now?" "I'm paying attention. Something I should have been doing months ago." She zipped up her suitcase with more force than necessary. "Fine. You want to play hardball? We'll play hardball. But don't think this makes you look good, Kai. Don't think the kids won't remember how their father acted when things got difficult." That hit home, and she knew it. But I wasn't backing down. "The kids will remember that their father didn't abandon them. Can you say the same?" She left without another word. I waited until her car disappeared around the corner, then got back to work. Phase 2 of my plan required a more delicate touch. I drove across town to Meridian Financial, the glass tower where Rhea had been building her career. I'd been to her office Christmas parties, met her colleagues, knew the basic layout of the place. What I was looking for was James Morrison, Rhea's boss. A straight-laced guy in his 50s who took the company's ethics policies very seriously. I'd heard Rhea complain about his rigid moral standards more than once. I found him at Murphy's Bar, 3 blocks from the Meridian building, eating lunch alone while reading financial reports. Perfect. "Mr. Morrison? Kai Dornell, Rhea's husband. We met at the Christmas party." He looked up, confused but polite. "Oh, yes. Kai. How are you?" "Actually, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. Mind if I sit?" He gestured to the empty chair across from him. "Is everything all right?" Rhea seemed distracted at work yesterday. "That's part of the problem," I said, pulling out my phone. "I'm not sure if you're aware, but Rhea has been having an affair. She moved out 2 nights ago. Morrison's face went carefully neutral. I'm sorry to hear that, but I'm not sure why you're telling me. Because I think it might be affecting her work performance, and possibly creating some ethical issues. I showed him the screenshots I'd taken of Ria's social media posts. The expensive dinners, the jewelry, the photos with Hayes. This is Hayes Relin, I said, pointing to one of the clearer photos. I'm sure you know who he is. Morrison's expression shifted. Everyone in Boston financial circles knew Hayes Relin. Ria's been living a lifestyle well beyond what her salary could support, I continued, and she's been doing it while having access to sensitive client information at Meridian. Are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just wondering if the company has policies about employees accepting expensive gifts from individuals who might have business interests that could create conflicts. Morrison was quiet for a long moment, studying the photos. These were posted publicly? Her Instagram account. Anyone can see them. He handed my phone back. I appreciate you bringing this to my attention, Kai. I'll look into it. I just want what's best for everyone involved, I said, standing up, including Meridian's reputation. That afternoon, I got a text from Ria. What did you do? I didn't respond. The next morning, I was at Fitz's gym, working out my frustrations on the heavy bag, when my phone rang. Fitz, Joey Fitzgerald to everyone except his closest friends, paused his own workout to listen. Kai, you need to stop this. Ria's voice was tight with anger. Morrison called me into his office this morning. He's asking questions about my personal life, about where I've been getting money for things. This is harassment. Sounds like he's doing his job. You went to my workplace. You're trying to sabotage my career. I'm trying to protect our family's interests. If your career gets damaged in the process, maybe you should have thought about that before you started accepting expensive gifts from clients. Hayes isn't a client. No? Then how did you meet him? Silence. That's what I thought, I said. Enjoy explaining that to Morrison. I hung up and went back to hitting the bag. Remind me never to get on your bad side, Fitz said. He was a stocky guy with graying hair and hands like baseball mitts, the kind of person who'd seen enough of life to know when someone was serious about revenge. She brought this on herself. I'm not judging, just observing. He held the bag steady while I threw a combination. What's your next move? Social pressure. Ria cares more about what people think of her than almost anything else. You're going to out her publicly? I'm going to let her out herself. That evening, I started making phone calls. Not to spread gossip. I was more subtle than that. I called mutual friends, neighbors, people from the kids' school. Casual conversations where I mentioned that Ria and I were going through a difficult time and that she was exploring other options. I didn't have to say much. People filled in the blanks themselves, especially when they started seeing her social media posts with Hayes. By the weekend, I was getting sympathy calls and offers to help with the kids. By Monday, Ria was getting sideways looks at the grocery store and awkward silences at the coffee shop she frequented. The breaking point came on Tuesday. I was picking up Lisa from soccer practice when another parent, Jennifer Walsh, approached me with that careful expression people wear when they're about to ask about something embarrassing. Kai, I hope you don't mind me asking, but is it true that Ria is dating Hayes Relin? Several other parents were within earshot, pretending not to listen while obviously hanging on every word. Ria is exploring her options, I said simply. But Hayes Relin he's older than my father. Yes, he is. And she just left? With the kids and everything? The kids are with me. Ria felt she needed space to figure out what she wanted. I could see the judgment in Jennifer's eyes, could practically hear the phone calls she'd be making as soon as she got home. By tomorrow, every parent at the school would know that Ria Dornell had abandoned her family for an 87-year-old millionaire. My phone rang that night at 11:15. You bastard! Ria's voice was shaking with rage. Jennifer Walsh called me. She said people are talking, saying I abandoned my children for money. Did you? It's not that simple. It looks pretty simple from where I'm sitting. You left your kids to move in with a rich old man. What would you call it? I call it trying to build a better life for myself, for all of us, eventually. By sleeping with someone old enough to be your grandfather? Age is just a number. So is the balance in our bank account, which, by the way, is still 0 for you. She was crying now, which should have made me feel guilty. Instead, I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Kai, please. This is getting out of hand. People are looking at me like I'm some kind of monster. Aren't you? The line went quiet except for her sniffling. I want to see the kids, she said finally. They're your kids too. You can see them anytime you want. Here, at home. I can't come back there, not with you acting like this. Then I guess you'll have to choose between your boyfriend and your children. Again. I hung up before she could respond. But I wasn't done, not even close. The next phase of my plan required patience and precision. Ria had made her choice, but she hadn't fully grasped the consequences yet. She still thought she could have everything. Her rich boyfriend, her children's love, her reputation intact. I was going to teach her otherwise. I started with her mother. Alma Jorvin had never liked me much, but she liked the idea of her daughter abandoning her grandchildren even less. I called her on Wednesday morning, right after I dropped the kids at school. Alma, it's Kai. I thought you should know what's been happening with Ria. There was a pause. Alma was 73, sharp as a tack, and had very definite opinions about proper behavior. I was wondering why she hadn't called me this week, Alma said carefully. She's been busy. She moved out on Monday night. She's living with Hayes Rellan now. Another pause, longer this time. The old man from the newspapers? That's him, 87 years old, worth about $200 million. And she left the children? Tommy asked me this morning when Mommy was coming home. I didn't know what to tell him. I could hear Alma breathing on the other end of the line, could practically feel her anger building. I'll be there in an hour, she said. Alma arrived exactly 60 minutes later, driving her ancient Buick like she was heading into battle. She was a small woman with steel-gray hair and the kind of moral certainty that could level buildings. Where are my grandchildren? She demanded. At school. They'll be home at 3:30. And where is my daughter? At her boyfriend's penthouse, I assume. Or maybe at work, trying to explain to her boss why she's been accepting expensive gifts from wealthy men she met through business connections. Alma's eyes narrowed. Explain. I showed her the same photos I'd shown Morrison, the same social media posts documenting Ria's new lifestyle. I explained about the abandoned family, the drained bank accounts, the complete lack of contact with her children. By the time I finished, Alma looked like she could chew nails. I raised her better than this, she said. I thought so too. Does she think money is more important than family? Apparently. Alma stood up, smoothing down her sensible skirt. We'll see about that. She called Ria right there in my living room, putting the phone on speaker. Mother, this is a surprise. Ria Marie Jorvin, what in God's name do you think you're doing? I'm sorry? Don't play dumb with me, young lady. I'm sitting in your living room with your husband, looking at pictures of you gallivanting around town with some old fool while your children wonder where their mother went. Mother, it's complicated. It's not complicated at all. You made vows. You have responsibilities. You have children who need their mother. I'm figuring things out. I just need some time. Time for what? To see how much money you can squeeze out of this old man before he comes to his senses? That's not what this is about. Then explain it to me. Explain how abandoning your family makes sense. There was a long silence on Ria's end. I deserve to be happy, she said finally. At your children's expense? The children will be fine. Kai is a good father. Kai is a good father because he stayed. because he didn't run off chasing money and excitement. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You're acting like a selfish child, and you're embarrassing yourself and this family. I'm not going to listen to this. Yes, you are. Because I'm your mother, and I'm telling you to come home right now and fix this mess you've made. I can't do that. Can't or won't. Another silence. Won't, Ria admitted. Then don't bother calling me again until you come to your senses. Alma hung up and looked at me with grim satisfaction. She always was stubborn, she said, but she's not stupid. This will eat at her. I hoped she was right. That afternoon, when the kids got home from school, Alma was waiting with fresh cookies and stern questions about their mother's absence. She didn't criticize Ria directly. She was too smart for that. But she made it clear that she disapproved of mothers who put their own desires ahead of their children's needs. "Grandma, is Mom coming back?" Tommy asked while we were eating dinner. "That's up to your mother," Alma said. "Some people make good choices, and some people make selfish choices. Your mother is making selfish choices right now." "What does that mean?" "It means she's thinking about what she wants instead of what you and Lisa need." Lisa, who'd been quiet through most of the meal, suddenly spoke up. "Is she ever coming back?" I started to answer, but Alma held up a hand. "Your mother loves you," she said carefully. "But sometimes people get confused about what's important. Right now, she thinks money and excitement are more important than family. Hopefully, she'll realize she's wrong." After the kids went to bed, Alma and I sat in the living room planning strategy. "She's always cared too much about what other people think," Alma said. "Even as a child, she wanted the nicest clothes, the fanciest toys. I thought marriage and children would settle her down. It did for a while. But the last couple of years, she's been different. Restless, always talking about what we couldn't afford, what other people had that we didn't. And this Hayes character offered her everything she thought she wanted. Apparently." Alma was quiet for a moment, thinking. "She won't be able to stand the social pressure," she said finally. "Ria needs people to approve of her. If enough people disapprove of what she's doing, she'll crack. I'm working on that. Good, but we need to be smart about it. If she feels cornered, she might do something desperate." "Like what?" "Like try to take the children, or claim you're being abusive. Desperate people do desperate things." I hadn't thought of that possibility, but Alma was right. I needed to be careful, document everything, make sure I couldn't be painted as the villain in this story. The next morning, I started keeping a detailed journal of every interaction with Ria, every phone call, every text message. I also set up a small camera in the living room, not to spy on the kids, but to record any conversations if Ria showed up unannounced. I didn't have to wait long. She appeared on Friday afternoon, just as I was getting ready to pick up the kids from school. She looked tired and stressed, her usually perfect appearance slightly disheveled. "We need to talk," she said, pushing past me into the house. "About what?" "About this campaign you're running against me. The calls to my mother, the gossip at school, whatever you said to Morrison at work. I haven't run any campaign. I've just been honest about our situation." "Honest? You're making me look like a monster." "I'm not making you look like anything. Your choices are making you look like a monster." She whirled around, her eyes flashing with anger. "My choices? What about your choices, Kai? What about the way you've just shut down, stopped trying, stopped caring about what I need? What do you need, Ria, besides money and excitement and validation from men old enough to collect Social Security? I need a partner who has ambition, who wants more out of life than fixing computers and hitting punching bags. I need a wife who doesn't abandon her children for a sugar daddy." We stared at each other across the living room, years of resentment and disappointment hanging in the air between us. "This isn't working," she said finally. "No, it's not. I want a divorce." "Fine. But I keep the kids, I keep the house, and I keep every penny of our assets." That's not how divorce works. It is when one spouse abandons the family for an affair. I didn't abandon anyone. Really? When was the last time you tucked Tommy into bed? When was the last time you helped Lisa with her homework? When was the last time you acted like a mother instead of a teenager with a credit card? She didn't have an answer for that. I'll fight you, she said instead. Good luck. I've got documentation of everything. Your affair, your abandonment, your complete lack of interest in the children's welfare. Plus, your boyfriend is under investigation by the SEC for some questionable investment practices. How do you think that's going to look in family court? Her face went pale. What investigation? I smiled. I'd been saving this particular piece of information for the right moment. You didn't know? Hayes Relin is being investigated for insider trading and market manipulation. Has been for 3 months. It's not public yet, but it will be soon. That's impossible. Hayes would have told me. Would he? Or would he keep quiet about it to avoid scaring off his new girlfriend? I could see the doubt creeping into her eyes. You're lying. Am I? Ask him tonight. See what he says. She left without another word, but I could tell the seed of doubt had been planted. That evening, I got a series of increasingly frantic text messages. Hayes says the investigation is nothing serious. Why won't you just tell me the truth? This is all your fault somehow, isn't it? Call me back. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I spent the evening with my kids, helping Lisa with her science project and reading bedtime stories to Tommy. Normal father things that apparently counted as abandonment in Ria's twisted worldview. But I wasn't done with her yet. Not by a long shot. The charity gala was perfect, too perfect to be coincidence. The annual Harbor Foundation dinner, Boston's most prestigious social event, where the city's elite gathered to write large checks and be seen doing it. Hayes Relin would be there, of course. He'd been a major donor for years. And thanks to a carefully placed bid through an intermediary, I'd just won the auction for a private dinner at his penthouse. The irony was delicious. I'd spent 3 weeks setting this up, using contacts from my computer repair business to place the winning bid through a shell company. $50,000 for dinner with Hayes Relin and selected guests at his Harborview penthouse. The money came from our joint savings, technically Ria's money too, which made it even sweeter. The invitation arrived on Monday, elegant cardstock with gold lettering. Mr. and Mrs. Kai Dornell were cordially invited to attend dinner with Mr. Hayes Relin on Saturday evening. I called Ria that afternoon. Congratulations, I said when she answered. On what? We've been invited to a very exclusive dinner party, Saturday night, your boyfriend's place. Silence. What are you talking about? I won the auction at the Harbor Foundation Gala. Dinner for 2 with Hayes Relin at his penthouse. $50,000. I thought you'd be excited. You did what? Used our savings to buy dinner with your boyfriend. Seemed like a good investment. Kai, this is insane. You can't just what? Attend a charity function I paid for? With my wife? I'm not your wife anymore. Legally, you are. Until the divorce is finalized, you're still Mrs. Kai Dornell, which means you'll be attending as my guest. I'm not going. Then I'll go alone and explain to Hayes and all his wealthy friends why my wife couldn't make it. I'm sure they'll understand when I tell them about your situation. Another silence. You're trying to humiliate me. I'm trying to get my money's worth. $50,000 buys a lot of conversation. She hung up, but I knew she'd be there. Ria couldn't resist the chance to manage the situation, to try to control the narrative. Her pride wouldn't let her hide while I had dinner with her boyfriend and his social circle. The rest of the week, I prepared like I was planning a military operation. I researched every guest who'd be attending, learned everything I could about Hayes's business dealings and social connections. I bought a new suit, expensive but not flashy. I wanted to look like I belonged in that world, at least for one night. Most importantly, I gathered evidence. Screenshots of Ria's social media posts, copies of financial records showing the sudden lifestyle change, documentation of her abandonment of the children. Everything organized in a neat folder on my phone. Fitz thought I was losing my mind. "You're walking into the lion's den," he said Friday night after we'd finished sparring. "What's to stop this Hayes guy from having you thrown out?" "He can't. I paid for the dinner. Besides, he doesn't know what I know about him." "Which is what, exactly?" "That the SEC investigation is more serious than he's been letting on. That 3 of his major investors pulled out last month. That his hedge fund is hemorrhaging money, and he's been using new investments to cover losses from old ones." Fitz whistled low. "How'd you find all that out?" "I fix computers for a living, including computers at 2 different law firms that have been advising clients about Hayes Relin investments. Amazing what people leave in their browser history." "That's not exactly legal evidence." "It doesn't have to be legal, it just has to be true." Saturday evening arrived gray and drizzly, typical October weather in Boston. I picked up Rhea at Hayes's building, where she was waiting in the lobby looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. She'd dressed carefully: elegant black dress, understated jewelry, hair pulled back in a sophisticated chignon. She looked beautiful and miserable in equal measure. "Ground rules," she said as we rode the elevator up to Hayes's penthouse. "You don't embarrass me, you don't make a scene, and you don't say anything about our personal business. I'll be the perfect gentleman." "I'm serious, Kai." "So am I." The elevator opened directly into Hayes's apartment, a sprawling space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Boston Harbor. There were maybe 20 people there, all expensively dressed, all radiating the kind of confidence that comes with serious money. Hayes himself was exactly what I'd expected: tall, thin, impeccably dressed despite his age. He moved carefully, leaning on an ornate walking stick, but his eyes were sharp and calculating. He greeted us with practiced charm. "Mr. Dornell, so generous of you to support the Harbor Foundation, and you must be Rhea." He took her hand and held it just a moment too long. "I've heard so much about you." "All good things, I hope," I said pleasantly. Hayes smiled, but there was wariness in his eyes. He'd done his homework too, apparently. Dinner was served in a dining room that probably cost more than my house. The conversation was polite, superficial: art, politics, charitable causes. I played my part perfectly, asking intelligent questions, making appropriate comments, giving no hint of what was coming. Rhea relaxed as the evening progressed. She was in her element here, charming and sophisticated, the kind of woman who belonged in this world of wealth and privilege. I could see why Hayes was attracted to her, and why she was attracted to this lifestyle, but I could also see the cracks in the facade. Hayes was nervous, checking his phone frequently, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. 2 of the other guests, investors, based on their conversation, excused themselves early. The mood was subtly wrong, like a party where everyone was pretending to have fun. I waited until dessert was served, and the wine had loosened tongues. "Hayes," I said during a lull in conversation, "I've been reading about some interesting developments in the hedge fund industry. Lots of regulatory scrutiny lately." His fork paused halfway to his mouth. "Oh?" "The SEC has been very active, investigating all sorts of questionable practices: insider trading, market manipulation, Ponzi schemes. Terrible for investor confidence." "Indeed, though most investigations turn out to be much ado about nothing." "Usually, but not always." I smiled pleasantly. I imagine it must be stressful being under that kind of scrutiny, even when you're confident of the outcome. The table had gone quiet. Rhea was staring at me with growing alarm. "I'm not sure what you're implying," Hayes said carefully. "Nothing at all. Just making conversation about current events." I turned to one of the other guests, a woman I'd identified as the wife of a major investor. "Mrs. Patterson, didn't I read that your husband recently made some changes to his investment portfolio?" She looked uncomfortable. "I wouldn't know the details." "Of course not, though I imagine any prudent investor would want to diversify, especially in uncertain times." Hayes set down his fork. Perhaps we should move to the living room for coffee. Excellent idea, I agreed. I'd love to see more of this beautiful apartment. Rhea has told me so much about it. We moved to the living room, but the damage was done. The other guests were whispering among themselves, shooting nervous glances at Hayes. The carefully maintained atmosphere of success and stability was cracking. I waited until we were all seated with coffee before dropping the next bomb. You know, Hayes, I have to thank you for taking such good care of my wife during our separation. The room went silent. The expensive dinners, the jewelry, the designer clothes. It's been very generous of you, especially since Rhea's salary certainly couldn't cover that lifestyle. Rhea's face had gone white. Kai, don't. Don't what? Don't thank the man who's been supporting my wife while she figures out whether she wants to stay married? Hayes was gripping his walking stick so tightly his knuckles were white. I think perhaps... Of course, it does raise some interesting questions about the nature of your relationship. Business mentor? Personal friend? Something more intimate? Stop, Rhea whispered, but I was just getting started. The thing is, I continued, pulling out my phone, Rhea has been very open about your relationship on social media, perhaps too open. I started showing the photos, Rhea and Hayes at restaurants, Rhea wearing expensive jewelry, Rhea posting from his apartment with captions about finding someone who appreciates the finer things. The other guests were staring in fascination and horror. This was better than reality television. Of course, I said, swiping to the next photo. What makes this particularly interesting is that Rhea met Hayes through her work at Meridian Financial, where she has access to confidential client information, and Hayes has been making some very profitable trades lately, despite the overall market downturn. Hayes stood up abruptly. I think this dinner is over. Really? But we haven't gotten to the best part yet. I looked around the room at the assembled guests. Did you know that Hayes is currently under investigation by the SEC for insider trading? Or that 3 major investors pulled their money out of his fund last month? Or that he's been using new investments to cover losses from old ones? The reaction was immediate and devastating. Chairs scraped back, conversations erupted, phones came out as people started making calls. Hayes's carefully cultivated image was disintegrating in real time. You son of a... Hayes started toward me, raising his walking stick. Careful, I said, standing up. Assault charges would be the least of your problems right now. Rhea was on her feet too, tears streaming down her face. How could you do this to me? Do what? Tell the truth? You've ruined everything. I've revealed what was already there. The lies, the manipulation, the complete disregard for our family. She slapped me then, hard enough to snap my head sideways. The room erupted in gasps and excited chatter. I touched my cheek, smiled, and pulled out my phone again. Thank you, I said. That'll make an excellent addition to my divorce documentation. Security arrived within minutes. Hayes had obviously called them, but the damage was done. Half the guests had already left, and the ones who remained were buzzing with gossip that would be all over Boston's social scene by morning. As we waited for the elevator, Rhea turned to me with pure hatred in her eyes. I will destroy you for this. You already tried, remember? You left me for a criminal and abandoned our children for money. How exactly are you going to make that look worse for me? The elevator doors opened, and we rode down in silence. In the lobby, she turned to walk back toward the building's entrance. Going back up? I asked. This is my home now. For how long? Hayes is finished, Rhea. His fund is collapsing, the SEC is closing in, and after tonight, his social reputation is destroyed. How long do you think he's going to want an expensive girlfriend around? She didn't answer, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. When it all falls apart, I said, don't come crying to me. I left her standing in the lobby and drove home to my children, but I wasn't done with either of them yet. The fallout from the dinner party was swift and brutal. By Monday morning, the story was all over Boston's financial district. Hayes Rellin's hedge fund was hemorrhaging investors, the SEC investigation had been leaked to the press, and social media was buzzing with gossip about the spectacular scene at his penthouse. Rhea called me 17 times that day. I didn't answer. She finally showed up at my house Tuesday evening, just as I was finishing dinner with the kids and Alma. She looked like she hadn't slept in days, hollow-eyed, pale, her usual perfect appearance completely disheveled. "We need to talk," she said. "The children are eating," Alma said coldly. "Come back later. I need to speak to my husband." "Your husband is busy being a parent, something you might try sometime." Rhea's face crumpled. "Please, Kai, just 5 minutes." I looked at Tommy and Lisa, both of whom were staring at their mother with a mixture of confusion and hurt. They'd been asking fewer questions about her absence lately, which somehow made it worse. 5 minutes, I said. "Outside." We stood on the front porch in the October chill. Rhea wrapped her arms around herself, shivering in her expensive but impractical designer coat. "Hayes is finished," she said without preamble. "I know. The fund is collapsing. He's going to lose everything. The penthouse, the cars, probably even his freedom if the SEC charges stick. I know. You planned this. All of it. The dinner, the investigation, everything. I didn't plan the investigation. I just made sure people knew about it." She was crying now, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Do you have any idea what you've done to me? I've shown you the consequences of your choices. I have nothing now, no job. Morrison fired me this morning. No money. Hayes cut off my access to his accounts yesterday. No place to live. He's selling the penthouse to cover his legal costs. You have a home, right here, with your children. After what I did? After the way I left? That's up to you to figure out." She wiped her nose with the back of her hand, a gesture so unlike her usual polished demeanor that it was almost heartbreaking. "The kids hate me. The kids are confused and hurt. There's a difference. Tommy won't even look at me. You abandoned him. What did you expect? I thought I could have both, the excitement, the money, the lifestyle, and still be their mother. Life doesn't work that way. I know that now." We stood in silence for a moment, our breath visible in the cold air. "What happens now?" she asked. "That depends on what you want. I want my family back." "Your family is right here. It's been here the whole time." Can you ever forgive me?" I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in months. Beneath the expensive clothes and perfect makeup, beneath the ambition and selfishness, I could see traces of the woman I'd fallen in love with 15 years ago. But I could also see everything that had happened since then, all the choices that had led us to this moment. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe. Eventually. But forgiveness isn't the same as trust, and trust isn't the same as love." "I understand." "Do you? Because this isn't a movie, Rhea. You can't just apologize and have everything go back to the way it was. You abandoned our children. You destroyed our marriage. You threw away 12 years for a man who's now facing federal charges. I know I messed up. You didn't mess up. You made a series of deliberate choices, each one worse than the last, and now you get to live with the consequences." She nodded, still crying. "But," I continued, "you're still their mother, and if you're serious about wanting to be part of their lives again, we can figure out how to make that work." "Really?" "For them. Not for you, not for me. For them." "What would that look like?" "I don't know yet. Therapy, probably. A lot of very difficult conversations. And you'd have to prove that you're committed to being their mother, not just when it's convenient. I can do that. We'll see." I turned to go back inside, then stopped. "One more thing, Rhea. If you ever, and I mean ever, put your own desires ahead of our children's needs again, I will make what happened to Hayes look like a gentle suggestion. Do you understand me? She nodded. Good. Now go home and think about whether you really want to do the work it's going to take to earn your way back into their lives. Where should I go? I don't have anywhere. That's not my problem anymore. I went back inside, leaving her standing on the porch. Through the window, I watched her walk slowly to her car, get in, and sit there for several minutes before driving away. Part of me felt sorry for her. A very small part. The rest of me felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Tommy appeared at my elbow, having finished his dinner. Was that Mom? Yes. Is she coming back? I don't know, buddy. Maybe. If she can learn how to be a good mom again. Do you want her to come back? It was a fair question, and he deserved an honest answer. I want you and Lisa to have a mother who loves you more than anything else in the world. If that's the person she becomes, then yes, I want her to come back. And if it's not? Then we'll be fine without her. We've been doing okay so far, haven't we? He nodded and hugged me around the waist. I love you, Dad. I love you too, son. Later that evening, after the kids were in bed and Alma had gone home, I sat in my office updating my journal. 6 weeks ago, I'd been a naive husband who thought his biggest problem was his wife's spending habits. Now, I was a single father who'd systematically destroyed the life his wife had tried to build without him. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it just felt like survival. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This isn't over. Hayes, presumably. Or maybe Rhea. It didn't matter. They'd both shot their best shots and missed. Whatever came next, I'd handle it the same way I'd handled everything else, by protecting my children and accepting the consequences of my choices. Unlike some people, I could live with mine. I closed the journal and went to bed. Tomorrow, Tommy had a soccer game and Lisa had a piano recital. Normal parent things, the kind of responsibilities that actually mattered. Outside, Boston glittered in the darkness, full of ambitious people making ambitious choices. Some of them would succeed, some would fail, and some would discover that getting everything you think you want is the cruelest punishment of all. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I had everything I actually needed right here under my roof, sleeping peacefully in their beds, dreaming whatever dreams 8-year-olds and 11-year-olds dream. Everything else was just noise,